On Saturday, September the 20th, The Hague witnessed a violent eruption during what began as an anti-immigration protest. As the Netherlands gears up for a general election in just over a month, this event underscores the simmering tensions over migration policy, political polarization, and the question of how far protests can go before crossing into unrest. The protest had been organized by a social media activist calling herself unrest. The call was for stricter asylum policies, more control over immigration, and concerns over housing. Hundreds, possibly up to 1,500 people turned up. Many came peacefully, with flags, slogans, and speeches. But within the crowd were groups that had more confrontational intentions. Some far-right activists, some football hooligans with experience in coordinated clashes, and others drawn by anti-immigration fervor. The demonstration began at Malieveld in The Hague, but tensions escalated quickly. Once part of the group broke away, they blocked the A12, a major highway. Objects were thrown: bottles, rocks, fireworks. In the chaos, a police car was set on fire. Windows at the office of the centrist party D66 were smashed. Law enforcement responded with tear gas and a water cannon to disperse the crowd. At least 30 people were arrested, among them several minors. Some reports put the number of violent protesters at more than 1,000. 4 officers were injured as police tried to regain control. Beyond the physical clashes, the protest carried powerful symbolism. Some demonstrators carried flags historically associated with the Dutch Nazi collaborationist party. Chants and slogans echoed the so-called Great Replacement conspiracy theory, the idea that immigration is replacing native populations. Dutch intelligence agencies have warned that this theory can fuel radicalization and violence. Politicians across the spectrum condemned the unrest. Rob Jetten of D66 denounced the attack on his party's office. Caretaker Prime Minister Dick Schoof called the scenes completely unacceptable. Even far-right leader Geert Wilders, while continuing to push for tougher immigration policies, spoke out against the violence and vandalism. The aftermath leaves the Netherlands asking difficult questions. Dozens remain in custody, some of them minors. Investigations are underway. Politically, the unrest adds fuel to debates over asylum, national identity, and law enforcement at a sensitive moment before elections. The country is forced to reflect on where to draw the line between free speech, legitimate protest, and outright political violence. There are also growing concerns for journalists, several of whom were attacked while covering the demonstration. Media watchdogs warn that threats and violence toward reporters at protests are becoming more common, raising alarms about the safety of the press in public spaces. Analysts point to several underlying factors. Polarization over immigration has long been a fault line in Dutch politics. Housing shortages and economic pressures amplify anxieties, while others argue that restrictive policies risk stoking xenophobia and undermining cohesion. The rise of right-wing populism is another factor. Parties and activists have tapped into concerns over culture and identity, shaping the tone of public discourse. Even when not directly responsible for violence, their rhetoric helps set the stage for what some groups see as acceptable action. Experts also note the presence of football hooligan networks. These groups are accustomed to confrontation and have, in some cases, blended sports culture with political protest, making events like this more volatile. And finally, there is the timing. With a national election looming, every act of protest, every instance of unrest is magnified. How these events are framed could influence public opinion about who is best equipped to govern, who can maintain order, and who is to blame for instability. As the Netherlands heads toward its general election, the implications of what took place in The Hague are clear. Political rhetoric has real effects. The symbols and slogans matter. The way protests are organized matters. And the threshold between dissent and violence matters. What remains to be seen is how institutions respond. Will there be accountability for those who cross the line? Will this event shift public opinion on migration policy, on protest rights, and on what acceptable civic behavior looks like? One thing is certain: in times of heightened political tension, small sparks can lead to conflagrations. And for The Hague, that spark has already burned bright.